In a small, bustling military base nestled on the edge of a dense forest, life was always busy. This particular base was not just a hub for Earth's finest soldiers, but also a beacon of intergalactic cooperation. It was here that Lyra, a young alien student from Zeltron, had come to study human culture. Lyra was distinctly different from the humans she lived amongst. Her skin shimmered with a soft, silvery glow, and her eyes sparkled like the twin moons of her home planet. Her curiosity about Earth was as vast as the galaxy itself, and she approached every new experience with wide-eyed wonder. On a seemingly ordinary day, Lyra attended a lecture on human military strategies, keen to learn how Earth's soldiers maintained peace across such a diverse planet. After the lecture, the group of students, a mix of humans and a few other alien delegates, headed to the base's cafeteria for a well-earned break. The cafeteria was loud and filled with the clatter of dishes and the murmur of dozens of conversations. Lyra found the variety of foods and beverages fascinating, each item a new adventure. As she moved along the line, her tray filled with colorful concoctions and exotic snacks, her gaze fell upon a row of sleek, silver cans labeled Energy Boost. Curious, she picked one up, assuming it was a type of human energy drink. Marcus, a young soldier with a friendly smile and keen interest in the alien visitors, noticed Lyra's choice. He was about to warn her that the Energy Boost was actually a trial batch of a new military serum, not intended for casual consumption, but he got called away before he could speak to her. Lyra, unaware of the drink's true nature, popped open the can and took a generous sip. The liquid was sweet, with a strange, tingling aftertaste that made her lips buzz. She finished the drink quickly, enjoying the rush of warmth that spread through her body. However, within minutes, the warmth turned into a searing heat. Lyra's heart began to race, and her skin started glowing more intensely than ever. She felt a surge of energy unlike anything she had ever experienced, but it was not pleasant. It felt as if her very blood was fizzling with electricity. Panicking, Lyra rushed out of the cafeteria, her eyes wide with fear. She made her way to the medical wing, each step becoming increasingly difficult as her body reacted unpredictably to the serum. By the time she reached the medical wing, she was gasping for breath, her mind reeling from the intensity of her sensations. Dr. Haynes, the base's chief medical officer, was quick to attend to her. His calm demeanor helped soothe Lyra as he guided her to a quiet examination room. "What did you consume?" he asked, scanning her vitals on a holographic display that floated above her bed. "I just had an energy drink from the cafeteria," Lyra explained, her voice trembling. It was in a silver can. Dr. Haynes' expression turned serious. "That wasn't an energy drink, Lyra. That was a military serum designed to enhance soldier endurance in extreme conditions. It's still in the experimental phase and definitely not cleared for civilian use, let alone alien physiology." The news shocked Lyra. Her mind raced with questions and fears about what the serum might do to her. Dr. Haynes, seeing her distress, placed a reassuring hand on her shoulder. "We're going to take care of you," he assured her. "I need to isolate you for now, for observation. We don't know how this will affect you in the long run." Lyra nodded, understanding the gravity of the situation but feeling isolated and scared. As she lay in the isolation room, her thoughts drifted to her family and friends back on Zeltron. She wondered what they would think of her now, in this strange human place, lying alone because of a mistake. Dr. Haynes and his team worked around the clock, monitoring Lyra's reactions and consulting with Zeltron medical experts to understand her unique biology. Meanwhile, Lyra felt her body go through waves of unbearable heat and energy surges. It was like riding a never-ending roller coaster, one that she desperately wanted to get off. Marcus, feeling partly responsible for not catching her in time, visited as often as he was allowed. He talked to her through a communicator, trying to keep her spirits up. "Hang in there, Lyra," he would say. "You're not alone in this. We're all pulling for you." As the first day drew to a close, Lyra tried to stay positive. She told herself that this was just another learning experience, albeit a harsh one. But deep down, she feared what the coming days might bring as the serum's full effects were yet to be known. The base, usually a place of order and discipline, seemed to hold its breath, waiting to see what fate awaited their alien guest. And as the stars twinkled brightly outside her isolated room, Lyra felt both a part of and utterly apart from the world she had so wanted to understand. Trouble starts. The night was long and uneasy for Lyra. Despite the fatigue that tugged at her eyelids, the strange energy coursing through her veins kept sleep at bay. She lay in the isolation room, her mind a whirlpool of worries, and her body a battleground of foreign sensations. Outside the thick, glass wall of her room, Dr. Haynes and his team monitored her condition closely. The screens filled with endless graphs and numbers, each beep of the machine a reminder of the uncertainty of her situation. Lyra felt like a specimen under a microscope, her every reaction observed and noted. As dawn broke, the effects of the serum showed no sign of abating. Instead, they intensified. Lyra's skin glowed brighter, an eerie, pulsating light that filled the room with silver hues. Her senses sharpened to an overwhelming degree. The sound of a pin drop outside her room echoed like a drum in her ears, and the mild scent of antiseptic burned her nostrils. Marcus, who had been up all night worried about Lyra, came to visit as soon as he was allowed. He found her sitting up in bed, her knees drawn to her chest, and her eyes wide with distress. "Hey, Lyra," Marcus said gently, trying to offer a smile through the intercom. "How are you holding up?" Lyra managed a weak smile. "It's a lot, Marcus. Everything feels so intense, and it doesn't seem to be getting any better." Her voice was shaky, the fear evident in her tone. "I know, I'm really sorry this happened. Dr. Haynes is working on finding something to help you," Marcus reassured her, his voice a soothing balm to her frayed nerves. Just then, Dr. Haynes entered the room behind Marcus, his face serious. "Lyra, we've been in touch with the medical experts from Zeltron. They'd provided some insights into your physiology that might help us counteract the serum's effects." Lyra's third eye, a unique feature of her Zeltron heritage, blinked open, a sign of her interest and hope. "Have they found a solution?" she asked eagerly. "We're working on it," Dr. Haynes replied. "It's a bit complicated, because the serum was designed for humans, not Zeltronians. But with the information your people have provided, we're hopeful we can develop an antidote." As Dr. Haynes and his team labored over their equipment, mixing compounds and running simulations, Lyra and Marcus talked about lighter topics, trying to keep her mind off the discomfort. They discussed their favorite foods, the landscapes of their home planets, and even debated which of the star systems had the best vacation spots. However, the conversation couldn't distract Lyra from the growing heat within her. It felt as if her blood was simmering, ready to boil over. The room seemed to shrink, the walls inching closer, trapping her in an invisible box of heat and light. Suddenly, Lyra gasped, her body seizing up in pain. The monitors beeped wildly as her vital signs spiked. Dr. Haynes rushed to her side, his expression turning from concern to alarm. "Lyra, what's happening?" he asked, his voice steady despite the chaos. "It hurts," she managed to grit out, her body arching as another wave of pain crashed over her. "Everything's too much, too bright, too loud." Dr. Haynes immediately adjusted some settings on the equipment, administering a sedative to help ease her discomfort. "We need to stabilize her," he instructed his team. "Prepare for a full medical scan. We need to understand exactly how the serum is interacting with her system." The medical team moved efficiently, their actions swift as they worked to soothe Lyra's distress. A large scanner was wheeled in, and Lyra was gently guided into it. The machine whirred to life, enveloping her in a soft hum as it mapped the complexities of her alien biology. Marcus watched helplessly from behind the glass, seeing Lyra in such pain tore at him. He had grown to respect and care for the spirited Zeltronian, and her suffering was almost too much to bear. After what seemed like an eternity, the scanner powered down, and Lyra was moved back to her bed, now slightly calmer but visibly exhausted. Dr. Haynes reviewed the scans, his brow furrowed in concentration. "We've got some good news," he finally announced, looking up from the screen. "We think we've identified a potential inhibitor that might suppress the serum's effects. It won't be an instant fix, but it should provide some relief." Relief washed over Marcus, and he let out a breath he hadn't realized he'd been holding. "That's great news, Doctor. How soon can we try it?" "We're synthesizing it now. It should be ready within a few hours," Dr. Haynes responded. He then looked at Lyra, offering her a gentle smile. "Hang in there, Lyra. We're doing everything we can." As Dr. Haynes and his team prepared the inhibitor, Lyra lay back against her pillows, the sedative helping dull the edge of her pain. Marcus stayed by her side, talking to her through the intercom, a comforting presence in the storm. Despite the ordeal, a bond was forming between the human and the alien, a silver lining in the midst of turmoil. As they faced the uncertainty together, hope flickered in the dark like a star shining through the void of space. The struggle. The military base was abuzz with activity, but in the isolation room where Lyra lay, the world seemed to slow down. As Dr. Haynes prepared the new inhibitor, the atmosphere was thick with tension and hope. Lyra felt every minute stretch on as she awaited the treatment that might ease her unbearable symptoms. Her body still glowed with a faint, pulsating light, a visible reminder of the alien serum raging through her veins. The walls of her isolation chamber, usually a dull gray, now flickered with reflections of her luminous skin, casting eerie shadows. Marcus sat outside the chamber, watching over Lyra through the glass. He tried to read a book to pass the time, but his eyes kept drifting back to Lyra, his mind filled with worry. He had never felt so helpless, watching someone suffer and not being able to do anything more to help. Finally, Dr. Haynes entered the room with a small vial of the newly synthesized inhibitor. "We're ready to try this, Lyra," he announced, his voice calm yet optimistic. "This should help reduce the intensity of the serum's effects." Lyra nodded, her expression a mix of hope and nervousness. As Dr. Haynes prepared the injection, she braced herself, her heart pounding in her ears. The cold tip of the syringe touched her skin, and she felt a small pinch as the needle sank into her arm. The liquid fire of the inhibitor spread through her veins, a strange sensation that made her gasp. For a moment, there was silence as everyone waited to see the outcome. Then, slowly, the glowing light of Lyra's skin began to dim. The pain that had clenched her muscles relaxed slightly, and a sigh of relief escaped her lips. "It's working," Dr. Haynes murmured, more to himself than anyone else, as he monitored the changes on his equipment. Lyra's relief was palpable, but it was short-lived. As the minutes passed, the effects of the inhibitor began to wane. The glow returned to her skin, less intense this time but still present. The pain crept back, a dull ache that threatened to grow stronger. "We may need to administer the inhibitor regularly until we can find a more permanent solution," Dr. Haynes explained, his voice tinged with disappointment. "It's not perfect, but it's a start." Marcus, who had been watching anxiously, felt a mix of frustration and relief. He was glad Lyra was feeling better, even if it was temporary. "Anything that helps is good," he said, trying to stay positive for both their sakes. As the day turned into evening, Lyra and Marcus talked about their lives, their families, and their dreams. These conversations became a lifeline for Lyra, a way to distract herself from the discomfort and fear. Marcus shared stories of his childhood on Earth, of summers spent by the lake and winters with snow so deep it covered the windows. Lyra listened intently, her third eye blinking slowly, soaking in every word. She talked about Zeltron, about the vast oceans that covered her planet, and the sky cities that floated like giant lilies on the sea. Sharing their stories, they found comfort in the similarities and marvels of their different worlds. But as night deepened, so did Lyra's struggle. The inhibitor's effects were indeed temporary, and soon she was back to feeling the full brunt of the serum. Dr. Haynes administered another dose, but it was clear they were only staving off the inevitable. During one particularly painful episode, Lyra's controls slipped, and a wave of energy pulsed from her, causing the lights in the room to flicker and dim. Marcus jumped up, startled by the sudden display of her alien power. "I'm sorry," Lyra gasped, her breath heaving. "I don't know how much more I can take of this." "You're doing great, Lyra. You're so strong," Marcus reassured her, his voice a steady presence in the chaos. "We'll get through this, I promise." The night was a series of ups and downs, the inhibitor bringing temporary relief followed by its inevitable fade. Dr. Haynes and his team worked through the night, searching for a more stable formula that could give Lyra lasting relief. As dawn approached, the first light of morning casting a pale glow through the windows, Lyra felt exhausted but not defeated. The bond she had formed with Marcus, and the tireless efforts of Dr. Haynes and his team, gave her strength. "I never knew humans could be so kind," Lyra told Marcus as they watched the sunrise together, her voice weak but filled with genuine warmth. Marcus smiled, squeezing her hand gently through the gloves of the isolation chamber. "There's a lot more to us than meets the eye, just like there's more to you." Together, they faced the new day, uncertain but hopeful. The struggle was far from over, but with each other's support, they were ready to face whatever challenges came next. Finding a fix, as the sun rose over the military base, casting long shadows and bathing the compound in a soft golden light, the urgency within the medical wing had not waned. Dr. Haynes, with bags under his eyes from sleeplessness, continued his work, fueled by determination and countless cups of coffee. The lab was a flurry of activity, with assistants running tests and analyzing data at a frantic pace. In her isolation room, Lyra watched the hustle with a mixture of anxiety and hope. The repeated doses of the temporary inhibitor were wearing her down, each wave of relief shorter and less effective than the last. She felt like a ship caught in a storm, tossed by waves, but never sinking, holding onto the hope of clear skies. Marcus had stayed by her side through the night, offering words of encouragement and sharing stories to keep her spirits up. Now, as he watched Dr. Haynes shuffle through his notes, he felt a growing impatience mixed with admiration for the doctor's relentless efforts. "Lyra, we're close to something," Dr. Haynes announced as he approached the glass partition, his voice a mix of exhaustion and excitement. "We've isolated a compound that seems to stabilize the inhibitor effects in our simulations." Lyra leaned forward, her interest piqued despite her fatigue. "What does that mean for me?" she asked, her voice hoarse. "It means we might have a way to extend the effectiveness of the treatment, possibly even neutralize the serum completely," Dr. Haynes explained. He held up a vial filled with a glowing blue liquid. "This could be it, Lyra, but it's still experimental, and we need to be cautious." Marcus looked on, his expression tense. "Let's try it," he said firmly, his voice reflecting his resolve as much as Lyra's desperation. With a nod, Dr. Haynes prepared the new compound. This time, the procedure was more solemn, each movement deliberate, as if the weight of their collective hopes lay in that single vial of blue liquid. Lyra held out her arm, her skin glowing faintly, the veins visible and marked by the alien serum's influence. The injection was smooth, the coolness of the liquid spreading through Lyra's veins like a soothing balm. For a moment, there was silence, the room holding its breath as they waited for a reaction. Slowly, the intense glow of Lyra's skin began to diminish, the light receding until it was barely noticeable. A look of relief washed over her face, and her body relaxed visibly, the tension melting away. "It's working," Dr. Haynes whispered, almost in disbelief. He quickly checked her vitals, which stabilized into normal ranges. "It's actually working." Marcus let out a laugh, relief flooding his features. "You did it, Doc," he said, clapping the doctor on the back. But Dr. Haynes's face remained cautious. "We've won a battle, not the war. We need to monitor her closely to make sure there are no side effects, and the serum's effects are truly neutralized. The next hours were critical. Lyra rested, her body finally free from the painful highs and lows of the serum. Marcus and Dr. Haynes kept a constant vigil, monitoring every change, every breath. The base seemed to breathe with them, a collective sense of hope growing as word spread that a solution might have been found. As Lyra slept, Marcus sat beside her, watching the rise and fall of her chest, her face peaceful for the first time since the ordeal began. He thought about the bond they had formed, forged in the crucible of her struggle. It was something he hadn't expected, but now couldn't imagine being without. When Lyra awoke, it was to a quiet that felt both strange and wonderful. She looked around, noticing the absence of the harsh glow, the pain, and the overwhelming sensations. "How do you feel?" Marcus asked, his eyes searching hers for any sign of discomfort. "I feel normal," Lyra said, a smile breaking across her face. "I actually feel normal." Dr. Haynes, who had been quietly observing from the corner, finally allowed himself a small smile. "We'll need to keep you here for a bit longer, just to be sure. But I think we can cautiously optimistic." The days that followed were a blend of careful monitoring and gradual recovery. Lyra was allowed to leave the isolation room, though she stayed within the medical wing. The base returned to its regular rhythm, the crisis seeming to recede like a tide going out, leaving behind relief and stories of a near disaster averted. Through it all, Lyra and Marcus remained close, their conversations now filled with plans for the future rather than fears of what might come. Lyra spoke of possibly staying on Earth longer than planned, drawn by the bonds she had formed. Marcus, for his part, found himself looking at his own world through new eyes, seeing the familiar landscapes and routines as if for the first time through Lyra's stories of Zoltran. As Lyra's health fully stabilized, the story of her remarkable recovery and the battle to save her became a testament to human ingenuity and the strength of interstellar friendship. It was a reminder of the fragile threads that connected all beings, human or alien, in the vast tapestry of the universe. All is well. The morning sun streamed through the windows of the medical wing, casting long beams of light across the clean, white floors. Lyra stood by the window, her eyes closed, basking in the warmth. It had been a week since Dr. Haynes had administered the successful treatment, and each day brought her more strength and joy. Today was a special day, her final checkup. Marcus walked into the room, a bright smile on his face. "Ready to get the all clear?" he asked, his voice filled with the excitement that mirrored her own. "Yes, more than ready," Lyra replied, turning to him with a smile. They walked together to Dr. Haynes' office, a sense of anticipation filling the air. Dr. Haynes greeted them with a warm, reassuring smile as they entered. "Lyra, you look radiant today," he said, motioning for her to sit down. "Let's take one last look at your vitals to make sure everything is as it should be." As the doctor ran his scans, Lyra felt a calm confidence. She no longer felt like a patient under a microscope, but more like a visitor about to receive a clean bill of health. The machine beeped softly, and Dr. Haynes nodded with satisfaction. "Everything looks perfect," he announced. "No traces of the serum's effects remain. You're free to go, Lyra." Relief and happiness washed over her, a smile spreading across her face. "Thank you, Dr. Haynes, for everything," she said sincerely. "It was my pleasure," Dr. Haynes replied. "We learned a lot from this experience, and it was a privilege to help such a brave patient." As they left the medical wing, Marcus suggested a walk around the base. "How about a tour of some places you haven't seen yet?" he asked. "That sounds wonderful," Lyra agreed, eager to see more of the world she had come to appreciate under such dramatic circumstances. Their walk took them to the edges of the base, where the military structures gave way to natural beauty. They walked through a small forest that bordered the base, where the sound of birds filled the air, and the tranquility was a stark contrast to the clinical environment Lyra had become accustomed to. "This place is beautiful," Lyra remarked, taking a deep breath of the fresh, earthy air. "It's so peaceful." "It is," Marcus agreed. Sometimes we forget to appreciate it with the business of base life. They found a small clearing with a bench and sat down, enjoying the silence that only nature can offer. Lyra turned to Marcus, her expression thoughtful. "Marcus, I've been thinking a lot about what happened," she began. "I've learned so much, not just about human medicine, but about kindness and resilience. I want to share that with others." Marcus nodded, understanding her need to make sense of her ordeal by turning it into something positive. "What do you have in mind?" he asked. "I'd like to start a program, maybe here at the base, to prepare for other intergalactic medical emergencies. What we went through could help others, prevent future incidents," Lyra explained. "That's a fantastic idea," Marcus said, his face lighting up. "I can help. We could propose it to the base command together." Encouraged by his support, Lyra felt a new purpose awakening within her. This project could bridge her world and his, turning her misfortune into a beacon of hope and preparedness. As the day turned to evening, they made their way back to the base, discussing plans and ideas. The base, once a place of uncertainty for Lyra, had become a home. And as she looked at Marcus, she realized that the bonds formed in the face of adversity were the strongest of all. In the following weeks, Lyra and Marcus worked tirelessly on their proposal. When the day came to present it to the base commanders, they stood together, a team united by past trials and future hopes. The commanders were impressed with the thoroughness of their plan and the initiative they showed. Approval was granted, and Lyra was appointed to lead the new program, with Marcus as her right-hand man. The program was a success, drawing interest not only from within the base, but also from other planets interested in intergalactic health and safety protocols. Lyra became a respected figure, her story a testament to human and alien collaboration. Months later, as Lyra stood before a gathering of military and intergalactic health leaders, sharing her experience and the success of their program, she felt a profound sense of accomplishment. Marcus watched from the crowd, proud and supportive, a steadfast presence in her new life. Their journey had begun with uncertainty and fear, but it had led to a place of purpose and unity. Together, they had turned a crisis into an opportunity, strengthening not just themselves but the community around them. As the applause echoed in the conference hall, Lyra's heart was full. Looking out at the faces before her, human and alien alike, she knew that this was just the beginning. Together, they were ready for whatever challenges the future might bring, bound by unbreakable ties of friendship and cooperation.